Oh, hi, Mark. It's been a little bit since I recorded a video, and I wish that I could honestly say that I was going to do it more often. But I don't know. I'm at a point in my life where I just don't feel like doing it very much. But you know what? That could change next week, and I could get a wild hair up my ass and start recording weekly again, you know, and actually releasing things on a set schedule. There are a lot of movies that I've actually seen recently that I'd actually really like to talk about. I've been on something of a Bella Lugosi kick recently, so I watched a bunch of old Bella Lugosi movies, and I have found a couple that I love. Um, and seeing as we're in the spooky season, I'll drop them real quick. The ones that I love. The Black Cat is awesome. The 1930s film with Bela Lugosi. It's actually funny. He was in yeah, he's in another adaptation of the Black Cat or film called the Black Cat in the 1940s, but specifically the one from the 30s I saw, and then the Raven from the 30s as well. Uh, Solid recommendations for your spooky season watch list. But weirdly enough, we're not even here to talk about a movie today. We're here today to talk about a video game I played through in its entirety recently, which is Kirby's Dreamland. Um, I had never played through a Kirby game before. I am a fan of stupid cartoony platformers. I'd never played a Kirby game, and well, technically speaking, I've played like little bits and pieces of Kirby games in the past. Um, but I finally decided to play one because I found out that in its entirety, Kirby's Dream Land is about an hour long. You can beat the game in about an hour, and it's not a difficult game. Um, and so I was like, yeah, I mean, I'll just play through it in an evening. It was after work, and it was on the Nintendo Switch Game Boy emulator. So I was like, yeah, I'll play through Kirby's Dream Land. And so, what was my experience like with Kirby's Dream Land? Well, um, there was some good, there was some bad, and there was some ugly. Believe you me, there was some goddamn ugly. And the good, let's get the good out of the way. Um, Out of the way. Because we really want to talk about the bad and ugly things about the game, right? That's really what you're here to hear about. No, but the game has a lot to like. First of all, it is really charming. I think Kirby is just inherently a really charming character because he's this little pink, adorable puffball um, that has all these cute little animations, and he's got stubby little legs and stubby little arms, and he's just a little man. Yeah, it's adorable, but yeah. So I mean, altogether, it's a charming game, and that's great. The platforming is another thing. It's not overly difficult in Kirby's Dream Land, but it is all really fun and it plays very well. I think the ideas as far as I had heard this about the character. I don't know if this is exclusively like a Smash Brothers thing, but that he can suck in enemies and absorb one of their abilities and start using their ability. I know that's a thing in Smash Brothers. I don't know so much about like the mainline Kirby games. I think that a mechanic like that could flesh out the gameplay a little more as opposed to what it is, which is essentially, don't fall into a bottomless pit, which is actually not a very big concern in the game. There aren't a whole lot of bottomless pits, and they're pretty easily avoidable because of the fact that you can just kind of suck in air and you become like this air blimp uh, and you just kind of fly around. You can avoid a lot of obstacles like that in the game. Um, Pretty easily exploitable, but I don't think they were going for difficulty when they made this game. Um, but yeah, I think that could have been that could have fleshed out the gameplay a little more, because as I was saying, as it sits, the gameplay just kind of consists of jump on platforms, don't fall down hole, don't get hit by enemies. The enemies are the main concern in terms of the game's difficulty. And, I mean, they're not hard. I died a few times. I won't sit here and pretend like I didn't die. The boss fights are fun. They're fun little boss fights. Again, not particularly difficult, except for something I'll talk about a little later. But overall, it's a lot of fun. The gameplay is fun. It's really simple. It's classic Nintendo platformer. It's slightly less traditional than something like Mario or Sonic, because it's a gimmick. It has a gimmick to it. You suck things up and then you can spit out these stars that kill your enemies. And so by nature, that's a little less traditional than jumping on something to kill it, right? You can't touch the enemies at all in this game, other than unless you're like jumping off of a high up platform and he enters like this free fall state, and then you can kind of bounce off enemies and it defeats the enemies. But yeah, so that's a lot of fun. I feel like the game is pretty generous with health potions, with lives. I think all of that, it actually does pretty well. Kind of unlike another Game Boy game that I played in its entirety recently, which was Super Mario Land. That game. That game's really easy for like the first two worlds. Like the first half of the game is fine, and then the second half is just a steep incline in difficulty where they just start putting enemies in not random places, they're very strategically placed just to fuck you over. And that's annoying. That is thankfully not a thing here. I found every challenge in Kirby's Dreamland to be pretty attainable. Now, in terms of things that I don't necessarily like about the game, let's get into the ugly, shall we? And I'll just address the elephant in the room. It's a Game Boy game, so it's super dated, super dated. Now, a game like this on the NES can still look really good. Because, like take a game like Super Mario Brothers 3, for example, while it's not as detailed as a lot of modern platformers, it still looks pretty good. I mean, there's nothing about that game where I look at Super Mario Brothers 3 and I'm like, you're ugly as shit, nobody loves you. That might be a little harsh in general, but for certain games, I would absolutely say you're ugly as shit and no one loves you. Take Raven Squad Hidden Dagger, for example. That was an obscure reference, wasn't it? Yeah, bet you didn't think you'd hear about Raven Squad Hidden Dagger in 2025. Well, you just did. Congratulations. But, yeah, it's not a very good looking game here, though. And I think I've played very briefly a Kirby game on the NES. As I said, very briefly. Never played through a Kirby game prior to Dreamland. And, I'm sure that game looked better. It's just the limitations of Game Boy games, obviously. It's one of the consoles that has aged the most poorly in terms of graphics, because every game on the Game Boy is black and white. It's not colorful. Very, very little detail, and it was all because of hardware limitations of the time, but it doesn't make going back and playing those games any more pleasurable to know that it's hardware limitations, why it's like that. It's just kind of like, I understand. And there are still good games on the Game Boy, don't get me wrong. I think Kirby's Dreamland is a great example. I think it's a great game. No, well, a good game. I don't know if it's great. I think Super Mario Land is a great game. Funny enough, even though I just talk shit about it, but yeah, I think it's a very good game, but still very ugly. It's not a good looking game. I think for the Game Boy, for what they were working with, pretty alright. I mean, you're still the cute little puffball that is Kirby, and that counts for something. Now, in terms of things that I outright don't like, that aren't limitations of the hardware that it was designed for. The final boss of this game, actually, I should say the final level. The game is only about 5 levels long, I believe, or 5 worlds long, and the levels are fairly short. The final level is complete horseshit. It's complete horseshit, and I got very angry, unreasonably angry, playing through it the first time um, because my God, that final level is dog shit. It expects you to fight 4 of the bosses from the game. The game has about probably about 6 bosses, 6 or 7. And you don't fight a few of them, but you fight 4 of the bosses that you have already fought throughout the game. And then it expects you to fight a 5th boss. By the way, during none of this do you get any health potions. During none of this do you get any no additional help. If you're playing the game on original hardware, on a Game Boy or on a Game Boy Color or a Game Boy Advanced, you're screwed. You're not going to beat this. You're not gonna do it. I played it on Switch, so I had save states, and that's the only reason I was able to do it. I will say the first time I played through, I didn't actually play through. I had to go to work the next day, and I got really pissed off because I set out to beat the game, and I wasn't able to do it, and that really, really peeved me because I felt like I could have gone to bed an hour ago, and instead I decided to sink my time into this horse shit. But I went back on Friday, and I played through the whole game. And I played through it all over again. I didn't just pick up from the save state that I had made originally. I played through the whole game again. And with some very careful save state planning, I was able to finish it. The save states don't really save it, though, from my criticism of it, because that's not originally in the game. That's something that you have to count on the Nintendo Switch emulator for, you know? So, like, I personally, I think that challenge is a bit much for a Kirby game. Or any just goofy little platformer in general, in my personal opinion. I think 5 bosses in a row without any healing, anything, it's a bit much. But with that out of the way, I think that's really my only criticism of this game. I mean, you know, hardware limitations are one thing. Yeah, I can kind of overlook that. Obviously, you'd like the game to be longer because at the end of the day, if you bought the game back in the day for the Game Boy, you paid for it, you know? I didn't really pay for it because, I mean, I did through my Nintendo subscription, but, you know, I didn't pay for a cartridge of the video game. I have it for the Switch Online stuff. But, you know, so, I mean, you'd want it to be longer, but I think that's kind of why the final boss or the final level is such horse shit, is because it was a way to artificially inflate the length of the game. You know, make you replay all the way through it again. I wasn't looking to replay through the game 150 times before I actually beat it. But yeah, at the end of the day, guys, I think Kirby's Dreamland is a fun time. I don't know why I chose Dreamland to be my first Kirby game. I could have chose so many others, but Dreamland is just kind of a classic title, and I wanted to pay it a visit in 2025 and see what I thought about it. Turns out it's a really fun game. I would say it's like an 8 out of 10 for what it is. I think a lot of people would I don't think a lot of people would give a basic platformer like Kirby's Dreamland an 8. Um, but you gotta kind of look at things for what they are and put them into context. And when you put it into context, Kirby's Dreamland is a platformer that released sometime in the 90s, surely, for the original Game Boy. So, you gotta kind of contextualize that a little bit. But anyway, yeah, perfectly fun time. If you wanted to go play through it, if you're looking to beef up the number of games that you played with save states, totally achievable, and it is fun. It is a fun time if you are a fan of cute little 2D platformers like this guy. So anyway, typically we talk about horror movies here. Maybe I'll start uploading more regularly. I don't really know. Don't expect it because I don't know, man. Being an adult is exhausting. I'm 25 years old and I still haven't gotten used to the whole adult thing yet. It's tiring. It's tiresome. I'm expecting to be, 57 and still going, oh man, I'm still not used to adulthood. I don't think anyone ever truly gets used to being an adult. It sucks. But yeah, anyway, guys, hopefully I'll catch you on the next one.